you. Thank you. Thank you. Please don't stop. And before I say anything, I want to say that this shir tonight is going to be for the full shalema of David Zvi Hirsch ben Sora Mira and Malka Bela bas Shoshana Chava, and also the shir should be Leilu Nishmat Ephraim ben Tzipora. Okay, so probably confused. What am I going to talk about? Spiders' webs, hurricanes. Okay. First of all, as the rabbi mentioned, my name is Moshiach. I hope I haven't kept you waiting for too long. But I give shurim every week in Heichal in Hendon, and I've been doing that for a number of years now. Anyone who's seen my shurim on TorahAnytime.com knows that I normally speak about the Parashat of Shavua. Today I'm going to speak about something slightly different. And first of all, I don't know if the rabbi, I didn't hear him mention that I'm actually from Edgware. Of course, you've all heard of Edgware. Normally, when people from Hendon or Golders Green or elsewhere talk about Edgware, it's normally, somewhere so very far away that that you sort of almost need a passport to get there. And if you say to somebody, where are you from? Edgware. Oh yeah, next time I'm in Edgware, I'll come and see you. Whereas for us, actually in Edgware, for us, it's just 10 minutes down the road. It's really, we do it all the time. But okay, we want to try and bridge this divide. And I was thinking to myself to try a little experiment before we start the shir. A little experiment, like a test to ascertain who is the better crowd from Golders Green or crowd from Edgware. So I devised this little trick. Actually, I heard this from somebody. See my tie over here? My tie has two parts, as ties normally do. If I take this tie, the short bits and the long bits. Now let's say the short bit is Edgware and the long bit is Golders Green. So if I roll up my tie like this, and I roll up this part over here like this, and then we're going to try a little bit of a race. Okay, you can see this? Catch this on the camera, Leo? Okay. Now, we're going to count down from 3 to 0. And this is going to ascertain who's a better crowd. Edgware or Golders Green. Ready? Are we ready? 3, 2, 1. It's a tie! Okay. All right. Onwards and upwards with the share. Let me ask you first a question, a little bit of audience participation. Who can tell me what is the thinnest string or thread in creation? Who can tell me?
Spider's web.
You said that? Straight off the button. The title of the show is a bit of a clue. In fact, the thread that comprises the spider's web is the thinnest filament in creation. Yeah? Has very special properties, but I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. The thinnest thread you can ever have in creation are actually the filaments that comprise the spider's web. We're going to come back to that in a little bit. I do want to mention something about the parasha because I didn't give my usual parasha share this week. And as I mentioned, this is going on TorahAnytime.com. Big plug for them. If ever you've seen that website, it's a fantastic resource. Then Yeshurim, Rabbi Tatz is on there, many other English rabbis, plenty of American rabbis, shurim in English, Hebrew, Russian, French, whatever language you can mention, and some that you've probably never heard of. So, this week's parasha, is called Parshas B'Shalach. Now, Parshas B'Shalach, when we get to that Shabbat, that Shabbat has a special name. You can tell me the name of this coming Shabbat. Shabbat Shira. So when you hear Shabbat Shira, what do you think of normally?
Shirat Hayam.
Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea. Yeah, that's what we were taught at school. It's called Shabbat Shira because there was a big song. So all the Jews went out, and it was all happy clappy. Everyone's happy to be out there in the desert, and we all sang beautiful song. Yeah. But I want to discuss with you a slightly different take on that, because I heard it from, there's a commentary called the Shemana Tov, who mentions that really it shouldn't, if grammatically speaking, that's not the only meaning of the word Shirah, because the word Shirah also is connected to the word Yashar. What does Yashar mean? Straight, upright. So this is the week where everything is upright and straight. Okay, so now I want to explain to you how difficult that is to understand, because this week's parsha is anything but straight. Let me explain. As we mentioned, the first thing that happens in the parsha, everyone comes out of Egypt. You're talking 3 million people. Okay, men, women, children, lots of animals, tents, matzahs, moror, everything, en masse. Everyone's happy. They've just seen Egypt decimated by 10 plagues. So everyone's on a bit of a high. Okay, what's the first thing that happens to them? Once they've marched out, they've been waiting 210 years, what's the first thing they encounter? No. Anybody? The first thing? Anybody? A figurative brick wall. The sea right in front of them. Now, they went from a tremendous high to a tremendous low, because now they thought, we're going to die. There's no way we can get out of this. Water in front of us, mad, crazy Egyptians behind us, nowhere to go to the sides. That's it. It's all going to end after 210 years of slavery. It's all going to end on a bit of a downer. Okay? So everyone's now, the bubbles burst. It's all gone pear-shaped. Okay? Then, of course, we know what happens next. Hashem splits the sea. And now, everyone's happy again. Very good. Marching through the sea. It's great. 12 different channels. Everyone can see, they shave it down over there. They shave it Binyamin over there. Everyone's happy. They're putting their hands. They're taking fruits out of the walls. They're drinking water, beautiful fresh water. The ground beneath them is not muddy. It's all beautiful, shining floor. Everything, all happy walking along. And then they turn around. Big bunch of Egyptians. Big wagons. Fierce horses chasing after them. And now, of course, these wagons are not poodling along. They're going at full speed. Meanwhile, they're the Jews walking along. They've got the men, the women, and the children. They can't really accelerate. So now they're on a downer again. Okay, what happens after that? We all know the sea implodes. Egyptians killed. Jews get out. 1-0 to the Jews. Very nice. Okay, it doesn't stop there. While everyone's happy, there's an added element of happiness, because as they're going out, all the treasure the Egyptians had, it's all lying on the floor. So they come, they pick it up. Plenty of riches. Fantastic. And Moses tells them, you know what? Let's stop this. Let's carry on towards Israel. Let's leave the jewels, leave the gold and everything, and let's carry on walking. So that sort of rains on their parade a little bit. Okay. And then what happens? Alan mentioned no water. Plenty of salty water in the sea, but no drinking water. Now, there's children there. Forget about the adults, what about the children? They're not going to survive very long. So everyone's thirsty. There's a downer. What happens after that? Moses brings a stick, he throws it into the water, and the water comes out sweet. Everything's all nice. Oh, can't get better than this now. Egyptians dead, loads of money, water, no problem. Then they realized, What about the food? There's no food. So again, they're on a downer again. Then, what happens after that? Manna from heaven, as well as the slav, how do you say slav in English? Quails. Quails, yeah. Quails. Didn't know quails were kosher. Quails! Manna! Can't get better than that. Okay? What happens after that? Anybody know what happens after that? They're eating the man. What happens after that? Well, they were not alone in the desert. They had a Malik who started out. So everything's happy and then sad. And then happy and then sad. And happy and a bit happier and then sad and a bit sadder. And then a bit more. What is it? Is this Yashar? What can the Shema Tov mean by saying that this is the week where everything is straight and comfortable and one direction? Not talking about the band. Everything's, yeah, so what's going on? So to answer this, we have to go back one sefer in the Torah to Sefer Bereshit. And I will take you back. Everyone's got a Chumash here. We want to look at that afterwards. It's Perek Memtet Pasuk Chaf Daled. And we're talking about the last speech from Yaakov Avinu, Jacob. Jacob is now on his deathbed. He's talking about his life. This is his swan song. What does he say? Vateshev be'etam kashto ve'afozo zira'ei yadav midei aver Yaakov misham. Here's the word I want to concentrate on. Ro'eh even Yisrael. He's talking about God now, his relationship with God. He had a relationship with God from when he was born to the moment he died. So he calls God a strange name, a name that nobody up until this point had ever called this name to God. He called God Ro'eh. What does Ro'eh mean? Shepherd. Jewish profession. It was like, nowadays there's Jewish doctors, Jewish dentists, accountants, lawyers, criminals. Now, then rather, shepherding. That was the Jewish profession. So why was he calling God his shepherd? So I had a beautiful answer to this, because the word ro'eh, if you take out the vowels, you can read it as another word. What word can you read as Reish Ayin Hey, ro'eh? Take out the vowels, you get? Anybody? Re'ah? Re'eh? No, that's no. Ra'ah. What does Ra'ah mean? Bad, evil. He's calling God evil? That doesn't make sense. Why would he do such a thing? We're talking about one of the Avot. Calling God evil? So the explanation I heard is like this. In times in your lives, certain things seem downright bad. Bad luck. Crossing the road. Getting knocked over. Starting a new job. Getting sacked after a week. Anything. How many examples can we talk? How many things do we have in our lives that doesn't seem so rosy? And then things go very well for us, and then the bubble has burst and everything falls apart. That's called ra'ah. We would call that evil, no? We call that really bad. But if you take the same letters and you revowelize it and call it ro'eh, you'll understand what Jacob was trying to say. Because he was looking at his life, his 147 years of life, if I'm not mistaken, and reflecting on it and saying, all those things I thought were bad. I had a daughter that was raped. I had a son that disappeared. I thought he was dead for 22 years. You know what that feels like? Can you imagine? 22 years losing a son. I had a brother who wanted to kill me. And even worse than that, I had a father-in-law who wished me dead. Whenever there's a bride who, she likes to do things her own way. She's got her own agenda. We call her Bridezilla. Jacob's father-in-law was Schwerzilla, the worst father-in-law you can ever imagine. He would have had no compunction in killing his son-in-law like that. So Jacob had plenty to complain about. Plenty of things he could have called evil. But then in this parasha, he finally admits, he says, you know, all the things I thought were bad, all the lows that I had in my life, they weren't really bad. They weren't really ra'ah. They were ro'eh. Hashem, you were my shepherd. You took me from this place to that place. I can see now, looking back over my 147 years, that it wasn't all... It looked bad at the time. I couldn't understand it at the time. In fact, I even complained to Pharaoh about it. And he had 33 years taken off his life. He complained that he had a bitter life. I can see now, it wasn't really bitter. There was a plan. There was a master plan. This is what we need to take, this information, this precedent that we've been set by Yaakov, we need to take that into this week's parasha. And that's how we understand why it's called Yashar. Because, of course, nobody's life is perfect, least of all the characters in the Bible. You name me one character, I'm talking about the good guys, I'm talking about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, in Nach, King David, King Solomon, all the good guys. Name me one of them who had a nice, comfortable, chalak, easy life, you know, daf yomi, going to shul, having nice Shabbos, plenty of guests. No! There was swords, there was pits, there was everything. Just look at any one of those people I just mentioned and you'll see their lives were never straight. So the fact that it's called Yashar is extremely appropriate, because life does have its ups and it does have its downs. Sometimes they're very exaggerated ups, sometimes they're really the lowest of the lows. But you have to look back at your life and say, this is all Yashar, this is all straight, this is how it's meant to be. Because we'll never understand the ways of God. How will we understand the ways of God? So many things Hashem does in this world, we'll never ever in a million years be able to understand it. But we know there's a master plan. We don't have to know the inner workings, but we know that there is a master plan. It's like I always tell people, you have a mobile phone. Yeah, mobile phone. This is my kosher phone, it looks like a smartphone. This is my internet-free phone. Yeah? So, there's lots of complicated gizmos inside this phone. Yeah? It's got circuit boards, it's got a battery, I don't know how the battery works. It's got a little thing called a SIM card. Who knows how the SIM card works? Now, to use the phone, I mean I use it normally just as a phone, you just switch it on and dial and talk. Or text. Do I know how the phone works? I haven't got a clue. If this phone broke, if it fell into the toilet, I would have no chance. I have to just replace it. I couldn't fix it myself. So do we need to know how something works to use it? Of course not. It's the same with life. We don't need to know the ins and outs of life to know exactly why this happened to me. Why am I suffering? I don't need to know that to live my life. Do I need to know everything? Do I need to know what's on God's mind, as it were? No. You just need to know one thing. Yashar. Everything is straight. There is a master plan. And as long as He's sticking to it, we just have to stick to Him and we'll be okay. Bezrat Hashem. Okay. If we know for sure that there's a God, then we trust, we know what He's doing. In fact, if you think about it, we don't really have a lot of choice in this matter. There's another thing that I mentioned in some of my shiurim, that sometimes, it's not really my topic at the moment, I'll mention it anyway. Sometimes we have our doubts. Let's face it, you know, we're not all, nobody's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And sometimes we think, you know, God, why are you doing this to me? You know, why am I suffering? What did I do to suffer like this? And we want to put ourselves in God's shoes and say, we can do this better. You know, if I was God, there's a book by Eric Kaplan actually called If I Was God, very interesting, I would read it if I'm you. it's like he puts you in God's place and said, can you do better than this? And the answer is, unless we can turn around and create Venus, or make a Ford in Norway, or go out and create a black hole, or make China, or make a human being, then we're not really on level terms with God. Because he can do all these things. He didn't just create Venus, he created billions of stars. Yeah? So for us to put ourselves in his position and say we can do better, unless we want to go out there and make an asteroid belt, then it's not really, we're not really talking on his terms. You know what I mean? First of all, we have to understand we're judging the characters in the Torah by our standards. His complaint for us would have been the greatest blessing we could have given. His complaint was so subtle that you could have blinked and missed it. It's not like complaining. Our complaint, everyone has a complaint, There are times we're particular about something. We go into a shop and we buy something and it doesn't work and I want my money back and I bought it on eBay and you've swindled me and how can you do it? And everyone's complaining and getting busy and all this stuff. That's complaining. This isn't really complaining. It was so subtle, Jacob's complaint, it was on his face. It was a facial expression because he never actually initiated the complaint. Yeah, it's very important you know this, because when somebody's demeanor looks, a little bit off color, then you want to know, what's the matter? Is everything okay? You feeling all right? And that's what happened when he walked in to see Pharaoh that first time. His face was a bit browbeaten. I think browbeaten. He looked off color, green under the gills. Of course, when somebody looks like that, you want to know, is there something I can help you with? Is everything okay? So his face reflected what he was feeling. He may never have come out with that complaint, but his face elicited the question. Okay, so we can't really judge Jacob or indeed anybody else in the Bible by our standards. Very important. I've heard this said about a person's conflict with a Yetzer Hara. Somebody compared it to a mouse arguing with an elephant. A mouse, again, it's another fight that's not really, there's no balance there. What can a mouse do? Squeak, and eat cheese. What's going to happen when it encounters the elephant? The elephant saunters up and then just does this. No more mouse. How can we ever be expected to fight the Yetzer Hara? Because he really is, he's a malach, he's an angel. And angels are generally more powerful than human beings, at least than the human beings that I've encountered in my life. So the short answer is that I heard in the name of Rav Dalla from Or Sameach. He says that instead of shouting and squeaking, what do you have to do? Go around the back, climb up the elephant's tail, climb on his back, and ride him. And he'll never be any the wiser. Now we can elaborate on this a little bit, but the point I'm trying to make is you have to approach things through the back door. You can't enter into a conflict in something that you will never, ever stand a chance of winning. So therefore, of course, to make a complete separation, our relationship with God, of course we can question, but to say with all authority that we can really do what he's doing in any way, shape or form similar to what he's doing, you're onto a non-starter really, in my opinion. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. I don't want to keep you too late. So the Jews came out and they were all singing this beautiful song, and there's one line in there I want to concentrate on. Let's go back to Parashat V'Shalach, because one of the first things that the Jews say in the song is Zeh Keli V'Anvehu. This is my God, and I will glorify him. Now, what does that mean? That sounds very touchy-feely. What does it mean, I will glorify him? So, the main answer given to this question is that a person can perform mitzvahs, he can do what he's supposed to be doing, and he can be like a 9-to-5er, like a jobnik, somebody who does his job, and as soon as he has to go, he goes home. Yeah, in the old taxi terminology, they used to call it legaling a person, like legaling me off, they used to call it, which means a person takes a taxi ride, and then when the person leaves the taxi, they pay the exact fare, they don't give a tip. That's called legaling somebody off. It means you just pay me what you have to, and that's it. Where's the tip? I've been chatting to you for 7 hours about nonsense. Why aren't you tipping me? Yeah? So it's only correct that despite the fact you've had 7 hours to talk about whatever, you should give a tip. You should go above and beyond. So, Zeh Keli V'Avehu, this is my God, and I will glorify him, refers to the fact that a person shouldn't just serve God with what he has to do. He's got to go that extra mile. He's got to do things in a way that beautifies what he's doing. Yeah? Sometimes you have to put in a bit of overtime. How do you put in the overtime? Do you do it begrudgingly? Most people who work in the job that they're whatever, not happy. If you have to put in overtime, you're not being paid for it, you're not going to be best pleased. You want to do the overtime and finish. But that's not what it's like when we serve Hashem. When we serve Hashem, we're supposed to do what we're supposed to be doing, and we're supposed to create opportunities to do what we're doing that much better. Okay, it's not supposed to be a burden. So, how does this reflect on us? How do we do this? Well, there's a very interesting phrase that I've come upon during my, I think it's 10 years in the wedding business. So I'm a wedding photographer, along with my wife, who is a female wedding photographer, and we work together, thank God. It's the only time I get to see her. When we're working, it's true. So there's a phrase that has come about during the recession, referring to people who they want to make things look good at their simcha, but they can't afford to pay for it. It's called champagne taste, lemonade pockets. What does that mean? It means a person wants the best. He wants everything to look perfect. He wants the flowers, perfect. The caterer's got to bring the best food, nouvelle cuisine. One caterer I knew, he would never do nouvelle cuisine. He used to refer to nouvelle cuisine as garnish mit garnish. Yeah? It's a tiny portion with a few bay leaves. That's nouvelle cuisine. So you want to have everything beautiful. Plates, square, and have the greatest band. What about things that you don't see? What about the hairdresser? Or dare I say it, the photographer? Well, we don't really need to spend a lot on the hairdresser. Why? Because nobody sees them. They're behind the scenes. So we'll get who we need to get, they'll do the job, whatever, and finished. Why? Because it's champagne taste, we want the best. But when it comes to the money, we don't really want to spend a lot of money on it. So this, in my humble opinion, is what we really need to avoid when we're serving Hashem. Because we don't want to treat Hashem like we want everything external to be fantastic and wonderful. When it comes to, on the inside, what's not under the public eye, not under anybody's scrutiny, and we're not so worried about it. What does that mean? How does that translate? Let me give you an example. So, there are two types of giving, two ways of giving charity. One way is to go to a fundraising dinner and pledge a huge amount of money. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing to give charity. Charity saves from death. No? It's a good thing. But everyone's seen you do it. And now it's like you're getting an invisible pat on the back from everybody. People think, oh, he's a big shot. He's just pledged £2,000. Fantastic, wonderful. Now what about if the same guy goes home and let's say it's the next day, because I knock on the door, it's a charity collector. אני, יש לי צער גדול, אני אין לי כסף, יש לי כמה ניתוחים, the whole spiel. And it's just the guy and the charity collector. So what do? I take out a quid, 50p, chuck it to him and hope he goes away. And of course, you know what happens? You close the door, 30 seconds later, the next one! And you have to throw another 50p at him, because they come in threes. You go in the same car. You go from door to door. You know? You should know that when you say goodbye to the first charity collector, just don't close the door, leave it ajar a bit, because you need to peek out and see the next one. Get your money ready. What is this? Now the eyes are not on you. And there's nobody giving you that invisible pat on the back. It's the same charity. The same person in front of you. You know? It's only one type of charity. It's the act of giving. So, what changed? 1 minute he's pleased to give £1,000. Next minute he's begrudgingly throwing 50p. The answer is, Ze Keli Van Vehu. You're not focusing on the real essence of beautifying the mitzvah. It's not always when there's a fringe benefit. That's the word I was thinking of. It's not always that you have to have some return on your investment. I remember there was once a sketch about a bank manager, and into the bank manager's office walks a poor man with a little pushka. He wasn't Jewish, but it was a little charity box shaking. Bank manager looks at this guy and he says, "Can I help you?" He says, "Yes, I'm collecting for the orphans and the widows and whatever." He says, yes, so what do you want me to do about it? He says, "I'd like you to donate something." "You want me to give you something?" "Yeah, put it in the box." "Okay, yeah. So once I give you the money, well, what do I get out of it?" "Well, you don't get anything out of it." "Well, why would I give you my money?" There's this whole big thing ensuing back and forth. So there can be a stage where you really expect something. If you're going to give charity, you expect the pat on the back. You expect some type of compliment or reward or any type of side benefit. But that's not always the best way to do mitzvahs. There's got to be the aspect of Ze Keli Van Vehu. There's got to be the aspect where you're not expecting that pat on the back. You do it because you have to do it, and because you're happy to do it. Now, at the end of the song, it's all the men singing. What happened to the women? Somebody pipes up. Who pipes up at the end of the Song of the Sea? Anybody know? Miriam! Miriam, the sister of Moses and Aaron. She turns up with a drum kit and a tambourine, and everyone's got the triangles and the dum books and everything. They're all singing and dancing, all the women. But there's only one verse, one or two verses that talk about it. Doesn't mean the whole song. We know, the Midrash tells us that they sang the whole song just like the men. Probably better, because women have got sweeter voices. But there was only one or two verses that are described in the Torah. If I can find the pasuk, I will quote it to you. Vatikach Miriam Hanaviyah. Miriam, the prophetess, Achot Aaron, the sister of Aaron, et hatov, she took the drum, with her in her hand. She went out with all the women and the whole ensemble. And what's this, the part of the song that's quoted? It is, Shiru Hashem, sing to God, Ki Gaoga, because he's pretty big, Sus V'chavo Ramavayam. The horse and the rider drowned in the sea. Such a lovely refrain. That's the only pasuk that's quoted from the song. Horses, riders, drowning, yay! Let's have a drum solo. What's going on? That's what you talk about? I mean, of course, in the context of the whole song, you see the ideas develop. But this is the one pasuk, the one verse you ascribe to one of the greatest prophetesses that, is that right? Prophetesses that ever lived. Yeah? Horses, riders, bobbing up and down, dying, carnage and pain. Yay! So I heard a beautiful explanation for this. Because there's one thing that doesn't gel in that pasuk. Think about it carefully. Sus v'rochovo rama vayam. Horse and rider were bobbing up and down in the sea. Bobbing along. Da, 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 da. Right? Which word doesn't gel there?
Rama?
No.
Isn't it singular?
Rama? No, but I'm saying which word should really grab your attention?
They're riding, shouldn't they have been driving?
No, because no, horse and rider. No, they won't. No.
Horse first?
Sus, yeah, you've got the right word. Sus is the right word. Why is that strange?
Well, because the horse doesn't do it, that's what the master told us to do.
Singular.
Yeah, but more. Okay, expand on that.
It's singular.
No.
Sus.
Okay, we're getting a bit too deep now. It's quite simple. The rider was an Egyptian, right? He's a bad guy. He deserves to drown. But what did the horse do? He got a lovely little Pferd. Pferd is Yiddish for horse. What on earth did he do? He has to drown. Hashem, save the horses. Let's make a big campaign. We had to save the world. Save the horses. What did the Egyptian horses do? Make a big campaign. What's going on? How could Hashem permit such a thing to happen? And the answer is that even though the horse was an innocent party, it wasn't complicit in the thing, because a horse is a horse. It doesn't do much other than ride. You have to give it a bit of a potch, and it goes, right? He's got no free will. So we're told that even though it was completely innocent, it had to die. Why? Because through the horse came the evil, came the bad, right? Because the Egyptian, he wouldn't have got very far if he was on foot. He had to use the horse. So it was, I think they call it guilt by association. Yeah? The horse was a part of the problem, so the horse had to die. Doesn't sound very fair, does it? Still doesn't sound very fair. But at the end of the day, it was part of the problem, so it had to be got rid of. Why did God make it in that way? I don't know. But you see the culpability of an animal who has no brain, who has no soul. He just was part of it. Now, why was that so very appropriate for Miriam to sing with all the other women and to be recorded in the Torah? I'll tell you why. I heard this, I just came back from Israel. I heard this and one of the Sheva Brachas from my niece who got married last Monday. Thank you very much. Simchas by you, please God. So the rabbi got up and he said the following thing. He said, Miriam made a Kal V'chomer argument. Now, for those who don't know what Kal V'chomer means, it means, I think in Latin they call it fortiori. I don't know what fortiori means other than it means Kal V'chomer. But when you make a Kal V'chomer argument, it means you reason that because this is like this, then this thing which is greater, all the more so. Like for example, right? If I can lift this table, yeah, I'm strong enough to lift this table, therefore, for sure, I could lift this chumash. Yeah, that's called a fortiori argument. So because by virtue of this, then something which is more minor would definitely, I'll be able to do it like a breeze. Yeah? So she made the following argument. She said, the horse, which had nothing to do with anything, was taken down and given a punishment. So let's transfer that and transfer it to us. Now, let's look at the difference between a man and a woman when it comes to mitzvot. A man has 613 mitzvot. A woman is created in the image of God. She doesn't have to do hardly any of them. Any mitzvah that's time bound, you can cross that off your list. Don't worry about it. Concentrate on the other ones. You don't have to have limud Torah. You have to learn and steig over Gemara and sit in the base of Medrash for 7 hours. Don't worry about that. Concentrate on what your strengths are. But if you tell that to any self-respecting woman, they will say, hey, that's not very fair. What about us? Why can't we get a reward for learning Torah? Why can't we get a reward for blowing the shofar? Or shaking the lulav? All the other mitzvahs that are time-bound. That's not very fair. That's very sexist of God to do such a thing. So Miriam didn't think like this. She said to herself, we have a special role in Klal Yisrael. What's our role? Our role is to support the men in doing their mitzvot. Our role is, when our husbands in the morning are schluffing away and it's time to go to shul, we give them, we start off with a nudge. Then it comes to a smack on the head. Then it comes to going and getting the nagel of Wasser, filling it with water, and chucking it over them. That's how we do it. And we get them to shul. And then if the husbands are learning all day, you get them to Kollel, or they want to come to the JLE, we push them out the door. Can't stay home with me. Get to the JLE. So that's our job. It's a passive role, but it's a very active role. But it's actually a role that's we're not really in it. We're not really part of the learning, not part of the mitzvah. We're supporting. Can you see where I'm going with this? Think ahead of me a little bit. Think a couple of steps ahead of me. She said, what's the horse got to do with it? If the horse has got nothing to do with it other than supporting the rider, and he got a big punishment because he died, then all the more so us. We're supporting our husbands. We're supporting our children. We're helping them along the way. And we're not part of it. But we're still active. We're more active than the horses because we've got free will. So all the more so we're going to get rewarded for helping in this way, in this supportive way. And you know what? She was right. She was absolutely right. A woman's reward for guiding and helping her husband, or helping her sons, or siblings, helping them do mitzvot, the reward is unfathomable. You think it's a passive role to encourage somebody to learn, to encourage somebody to do mitzvah? You think it's, it's nice, it's very nice, but it's nothing really much. If you only knew what the reward was for assisting somebody to do mitzvah, you would run, you would pick up your feet and run and do whatever you could do. The problem is we don't know, and we will never know, because if we did know, there'd be no free will. It'd be a no-brainer, like breathing. Try telling somebody, you've got a choice. You want to breathe or you want to stop breathing. It's your choice. You see how far that'll get you. You're thinking, well, sugar, we're not breathing. That's not a choice. So if we knew the power of helping and encouraging somebody to do mitzvot, it would also be a no-brainer. We're like picking breathing or not breathing. But that will take away the free will, and that's why that is always going to be unknown to us. There's another incident that happens in this parasha. We have the man from heaven, the manna, which we've mentioned briefly before. Now it's described in a very strange way. In the beginning it's described as this sort of frosty stuff, like, the coating on Frosties, like little sugar coating on the floor. And then it's described as oily dough. Yeah? Doesn't sound too appealing. And then, a little bit later, it's described as kitzepechit bedvash, like a honey cake. Maybe that's why we have honey cake all the time. We love honey cake because maybe that's one of the comparisons to man. I don't know. It's a beautiful simile, honey cake. So how can we have this development of similes to talk about the man? You have frosting, and then you have oily dough, and then you have honey cake. So there's another answer to this, which is beautiful, and there's an amazing lesson which comes out of this, and this is really actually the point of my share. Because when did they find out that the man was like an oily piece of dough? They found that out during the week. When was it described as a honey biscuit, a honey cake? You know when that was? You can tell me? Shabbat. So on Shabbat it was different than what it was like during the week. Why was that? Now, you don't have to be too clever to understand that food on Shabbat tastes different to food during the week. You try tasting chillent, or if you're Sephardi like me, hamim, on Shabbat, and then have the same hamim a couple of hours after Shabbat. It doesn't taste half as nice. Yeah? It will never do. Even chicken soup on Friday night. Have chicken soup on Friday night. If you can manage with the blech or whatever, to have chicken soup on Shabbat morning, still doesn't, it's something slightly different. After Shabbat, forget it. It's not the same. It doesn't have the tam Shabbat. Why is that? Because on Shabbat, our minds are open. We know that the man tastes with the taste of whatever you thought. So if you think it's going to taste like a Hershey bar when it was kosher, it's like a Hershey bar. Think it's going to taste like steak, a mignon. Tastes like a mignon steak, a filet mignon, beautiful, whatever you want. But that only depends if you can actually visualize or conceptualize that taste. Somebody once asked the Chofetz Chaim, what happens if you taste the man and you don't think of anything? He replied, then it won't taste of anything. You have to think for it to have a taste. So during the week, taste it like oily dough. On Shabbat, when people, their minds are expanded with the beauty of Shabbat, now it tastes geschmack, tastes like a honey cake, tastes like the best food we can think of. What is the simile here that I'm trying to bring out? Plainly and simply, like the old song goes, life's what you make it. You want to think life is bland? Life will be bland. You want to concentrate on all the depressing things that happen to you and all the lows? Then life will be one big low for you, because you'll always find something to complain about. There's always something to be particular about. And if there isn't something to be particular about, then you'll invent something to be particular about. Life literally is what you make it. Tracht gut, they say in Yiddish, think good, and it will be good. It sounds very pithy to say such a thing. Yeah? How can things be good if I think? Well, you know what? Try it. Try it, just try thinking, you know what? Maybe this isn't so bad. I'll tell you a little story, because I haven't told any stories today. I'm normally coming out with some stories or other. I just read this today. I wasn't going to say this. There was once a fellow who was working in a... I'm not sure where he was working. He had a desk job in America. He was doing quite well. And one day, the boss called him and several of his fellow employees and said, I'm sorry, I have to make you redundant. Here's your pink slip. In America, they have something called a pink slip. Here we call it a P45. Yeah? They still call it a P45? Yeah, okay, fine. So gave him the pink slip. Now this guy is absolutely crestfallen. What's he going to do? So he was told, you have to come in on Monday, clear out your office, and go. Goodbye. It's not enough that he went into the office. He had to be accompanied by a security guard to make sure he wasn't going to take anything extra with him, which is pretty insulting, if you ask me. Yeah? So this guy, who happens to be a frum guy, he comes in, he clears out his desk, he comes back on Monday morning. Now he's depressed the whole day, Nebuch, this guy. He's thinking, what am I going to do? How am I going to support my family? And he doesn't sleep on Monday night. On Tuesday morning, 8:46 a.m., he happened to be the happiest man in the world, because that morning at 8:46 a.m. that day was September the 11th, 2001, and he happened to be working, or used to be working, at the World Trade Center. So sometimes we think it's the worst thing. How can it get worse than this? You throw me out my job? You don't even trust me to go back in and get my stuff? You think I'm going to steal something? And now where am I going to find my next crust of bread? How am I going to support my family? And now you realize Hashem just spared your life. Literally, Hashem spared your life. How many tens and tens of stories we know about the World Trade Center? I could go on for hours. I won't, don't worry. But there's so many stories. Just go read that book, City on Fire. And when you finish that, there's so many stories of a hashgacha pratis. So we may not know the answer, but we know that there is an answer. There definitely is an answer. there is a way that mobile phone works, we just don't have to work it. But we sure as heck need to use it. So, let's come back to the very beginning, and with this I'll finish. So we said the spider's web, the filament, is the thinnest fibre in creation. But there's another property that it has. You can tell me what other property the spider's web has?
Strength.
Strength. Very good. Not just any old strength. I want to read you, I got this from the MIT News Office. MIT is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And there was a professor there who made it his business to go into all this spider's web stuff and discover what makes a spider's web tick. Marcus Buehler, an associate professor at MIT, had previously analyzed the complex hierarchical structure of spider silk and its amazing strength. On a pound-for-pound basis, he concluded it is stronger than steel. Can you believe that? A spider's web, a little icky thing in the corner. Sometimes you get them in your car, and you just want to, you don't want to, it's too icky to touch it. You have to get a tissue, right? Normally breaks, right? So what's this stronger than steel business? Listen to this. It turns out that a key property of spider silk that helps make webs robust is something previously considered a weakness. The way it can stretch and soften at first when pulled, and then stiffen again as the force of the pulling increases. So you might think it's a little icky spider web, and I just want to get rid of it. But the fact is when you pull it, when you think it's at its most weak, it becomes stronger, becomes tensile. So much so that, I won't read you the whole thing, but they've done experiments in wind tunnels. I don't know how they got a spider's web in a wind tunnel. They put it in a wind tunnel and they've subjected it to near hurricane force winds. And the spider's web stays there. Probably when they get to hurricane force and beyond, it'll blow away. But you know what hurricane force wind is? It's tremendous. And this little thing, the thinnest fibre in creation, and it's standing stronger than steel. What's going on? Why did God create such a thing? There's a couple of things that I came up with. The one I came up with, the one my wife came up with. What does it teach us? Well, there's an analogy in the Gemara that says that you should be a reed and you should not be a cedar tree. Why? Cedar tree is very strong. Why shouldn't it be? It should be strong, firmly planted in the ground. Cedar tree is very strong. They made the Mishkan with cedar wood from Yaakov. So why shouldn't we be like a cedar tree? We have to be like a reed that's thin and... The answer is, you subject the cedar tree and the reed to a strong wind, says the Gemara. Who's going to topple down first? No prizes. The cedar tree. What does the reed do? It does a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and a bit more of this, and a bit more of this, and finish. Still in the ground. With all the big stuff, was all broken, and cedar wood. You have to be flexible. A person mustn't be stuck in the ground and say, my way or the highway. That's not what a Jew's all about. Of course, there's certain things we hold as sacrosanct. We're not completely flexible, but there's certain things we have to. There's a give and take. A friend of mine once used to say, you have to be the ball sometimes. You should be, past here, past there. You have to be a little bit flexible at times. And that flexibility will only work in your advantage, to your advantage. And another thing, which is the smallest nation around at the moment? The smallest nation that's here now as it was 3,000 years ago. It's the Jewish nation. So if we're here now and we were here, since we came out of Egypt as a nation, why aren't we bigger? Why are we only 0.02% of the world population? The rest of the 99.98% of the world population are not Jewish. So who are we to stand up and lord it over everybody? So the answer is, I believe the Jewish nation is like the spider's web. Because the spider's web is a bunch of little filaments. Because if you take a single filament, you can break it like this with your hand. But try blowing a tremendous wind at the whole thing, it's going to stay there. Which shows that if we're together, if we're all standing as one nation united, then you can have the biggest tornado in the world, and we'll still be standing there. Meanwhile, the world's going crazy. We've got crazy stuff on the internet. We've got crazy posters out in the street. We've got mashugaras out there in America mowing down people with machine guns for no reason. You've got people in the UK stabbing people in the streets. Why? Because we should. That's our business. So we've got a crazy world out there. What do we do about that? Do we panic? No. We join forces, one with each other. We make that web, and with that, we're going to be invincible. Another thing that my wife mentioned, and that is, the web is something, not about the internet, the web, the real web, is something that if there's a storm out there, where do you want to be? You want to be in the web. You want to be attached to that web. As long as you're not a fly, you're okay. Right? If you're a fly, then you better start thinking of a way to get out. But you want to be attached to that web, because that's the safest place for you. So what did my wife say? She didn't want me to credit her for this, but I don't often listen to her. So she said to me, the spider's web is like the Torah. It's like the Beit HaMedrash. It's like the JLE. It's like Aish. It's like anywhere, any Makom Torah. But when that world out there is going crazy, and all this stuff being thrown at you, who knows what's going to be in the future? I don't know what's going to be in the future. You have to put yourself where it's safe. Where is it safe to be? Where's the best place to be other than the spider's web? So if you're there, if you're attaching yourself to where you're supposed to be, you're affiliating yourself with someone like the JLE, or Shul, or Beit HaMedrash, or anywhere, you're connected to Hashem, and that's the safest place you're going to be. And Bezrat Hashem, all of us should weather the storm, because Mashiach is around the corner. I'm talking about HaMashiach, not Mashiach, not me. But HaMashiach is around the corner, as my Rebbe used to say. He's just shining his buttons. It'll be any minute. Please God, we should all be Zocher, we should all merit to be greeting him in the Beit Shlishi. May it happen in our times. Amen. Thank you for listening, and thank you for coming.